Okay, guy. I hope that worked. I mean, we cut their heads off.
Guys, where are you?
I mean, there were twice as many as there were the first time.
I know. It's like they're
They
multiplying.
gouged out both of my eyes.
I don't know if you noticed this, but you're also missing a leg.
I can't tell because I can't see anything. You
Well,
dick.
PJ, you just got
Well-
you just got your bandana over your eyes.
Oh.
You're not blind.
Oh, thank God. Oh God,
you
I'm
are
blind
missing
again.
a leg, though.
Yeah, that really happened.
Sweet crackers, I'm blind.
Now, Dylan, you were before the interruption. You were discussing with us our favorite parts of nerd culture and sort of the do's and do not likes of it. And you did not get to give us your answer. I'm excited to hear it.
Mine's pretty simple. You guys know me. I don't complain about much. But one thing I'm not a fan of is when it's lazy pandering, I'll say. Like when it's obvious that they're just doing it to make money.
Okay.
But it's done in a very lazy and unimaginative way, kind of like what Calvin was saying about how
That's kind of like what all of us were saying. Yeah.
yeah, it's just like be passionate about a character, give him an interesting original. It doesn't even have to be the idea being original, but in an original way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of superheroes, I don't think you're ever going to get original anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it's
'cause
almost
there are
like
so many.
Right, and it's like everything's been done. But when you introduce new characters, they can still be introduced in an original context.
Yeah, and the thing that brought that up that made me think about that was reading a sort of preview, I guess, preview for the new DC heroes that are coming out.
Mm-hmm.
One of them being Sideways. He's the one that looks like Spider-Man.
Okay.
His outfit, and looking into his this preview, he not only the outfit looks like Spider-Man, but the character seems to be the same sort of confused teenager. Like, he's not exactly the most popular kid in high school, and he's dealing with that along with having these powers. And
Wow. So it is just Spider-Man.
it is, and it was.
I'm looking at the picture now. That's why I went quiet. That is literally Spider-Man.
And like that wasn't even my biggest problem. And then getting to the point where he's pretty much Peter Parker,
Right.
That really wasn't even it. It was I guess they're kind of calling it his mantra. I'm not sure. But the way they introduced it, they gave him like a little bit of a like background real quick, and then they decided to throw in like his mantra, which is with immense power comes great liability, or something like that. And I shit you not, it at least ends with comes with great liability.
Like
Like, that is obviously.
Well, and I'm looking at like some of these pictures. He's like standing. He's a young teenager. He's here taking a selfie video and posting it live, showing everybody how he rips holes in space and can teleport.
And it's like he has that power, which is nothing, in my opinion, like Spider-Man. But then they do all this stuff. They give him that mantra, the suit. They make him an awkward teenager. And it's like, just...
there's no reason to do that.
Like, you already had original powers. And the way they explain that he got those powers are original. And I like their explanation on how he got his powers. And
Sure.
I won't get too much into it. But... it just, to me, it seemed like DC going like, oh, we're releasing these new heroes, and, well,
Here's our Spider-Man.
Yes, because Homecoming came out not too long ago, and that movie was spectacular, and
I see what you did
Spider-Man...
Ah.
I actually didn't mean to.
I know, but it was great.
But obviously, with the rise of Spider-Man's popularity, they decided to clearly jump on that and decided to make their own sort of Spider-Man kind of character.
Well, because like the closest that I guess, no, who does? There's not really a proxy of Spider-Man
In DC,
in the DC
there
universe. Like, who's the
is-
closest before that?
There is, I can't remember. It's like a 2-bit villain. He's like a mercenary mafia robber guy, and he's got the word spider in his name.
It's like the Red Spider.
yeah,
He was in most recently that I've seen him. He was in All-Star Batman, like issue 2 that Scott Snyder did with who was the artist on that first run?
he's Black Spider.
Black Spider
is the name.
Yeah. Okay. That just, I don't know, this whole thing just kind of brings me back to the worst parts of 90s comics.
Right.
Unbelievable.
Where it's literally just like Rob Liefeld wanted to work on Deathstroke, and he did for a little while, and then he was like, okay, well, now I'm gonna go over to Marvel, and I want to take the things that I did with Deathstroke over to Marvel. And DC was like, well, that's our character, you can't do that. And he went, oh, so I'll create Deadpool,
Listen,
Slade, Wade Wilson.
ridiculous.
Right.
No, this comes from DCComics.com. This is the blurb about Sideways. Number 1, it says, during the events of Dark Knight's Metal, high school junior Derek James accidentally fell through a rift into the dark matter
This is the
dimension.
same one I read.
Now as Sideways, he can create rifts in midair to leap through dimensions at will. But with that much power comes great liability, and cracks are starting to form in the fabric of the space-time continuum. Unbelievable how spoon-fed that is.
It's clearly like a parody, but at the same time,
No, it's not,
fuck
though.
you.
Like, I don't think it is. That's my problem. It's not, like, at least with Deadpool, right, he turned into, like, a jokey character. That's not what Liefeld
Right.
wanted. Liefeld just wanted to spoof himself so he could get around liability issues. But
Right.
For the record, Black Spider is a character that appeared in Detective Comics 463 in 1976, and he's just a Spider-Man proxy. Like,
Okay.
it's a guy who developed like a webbing chemical that he shoots out of wrist things, but they come from the top, not the bottom of the
Right.
wrist.
But it's Spider-Man.
And he's a bad guy, and he shoots people, and it's like, oh, okay, hey, good job.
So it's things like that. It's when it's obvious that you could have created a somewhat original character, but you decided to be lazy and go the more profitable route. And,
Sure.
Yeah, and I'm not even gonna say that. That's what it seems to me. Like, I'm not gonna say that is what they're doing. Just to be fair, that's what it seems to me.
I will, on the record, say right now that is a Spider-Man ripoff. I appreciate that you won't say it. I'll say it.
Right.
That is a ripoff of Spider-Man. Okay.
And sort of polar to that, my positive is, in a lot of cases, Calvin, you mentioned this earlier, is nerddom and nerd culture breeds creative minds.
Yeah, absolutely.
You get a lot of good writers, good artists, and good stories.
For sure.
And sometimes good new characters. Sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about it. And then, of course, the fact that a lot of, like, the creators, artists, writers, and stuff like that are approachable.
Yeah.
Like, they themselves are nerds, and you can connect with them on that. And that's... I enjoy that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. How many... I know, like... I keep referencing MegaCon, but it's just because it's the nerd haven.
Right.
especially in our area.
Yeah, well, we've met Rob Hunter like 6-7 times. And every time PJ and I go see him, he remembers us by name. It is a really cool thing because they are so approachable.
A lot of them are down to earth,
Yeah.
and again, they were at one point in our situation where it's like they were fans of these stories.
Yeah.
They maintained that love and passion for it, and that showed in when they started writing or creating.
Or drawing,
Yeah.
Because my brain always thinks of Greg Capullo, who is like this insanely talented artist. He's worked on some of the best IPs of all time, Spawn, Batman, just to name a handful. He is the current artist of the biggest thing that's happened in Batman and like Justice League kind of style comics in like a decade. And he is the coolest fucking guy ever.
Yeah.
Not Neil Adams, but Greg Capullo is pretty cool.
Greg Capullo.
One of my favorite artists right now is Jason Fabok.
Yes. I
He's-
really love his stuff.
He reminds me of Jim Lee.
yeah.
I like his textures, his shadowing, and I like it.
Yeah. Is he's the metal artist? Or is he just doing...
I don't remember if he did any variants for metal, but I'm pretty sure he did the button.
He did the button. He
That's
did
what it
covers
is.
for him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are
He
awesome.
did recently Swamp Thing, the winter special, which
Yeah.
I love. That was a good story.
Oh, you're right. It's very much Jim Lee.
Yeah,
Like that same kind of like hyper detail.
yeah. Yeah,
And
I
then he was
really
working
like him.
on Justice League during Darkseid War. That's
Yes.
with Jeff Johns. Cool. I really like his style. Anytime that I see his name pop up on stuff, because I feel like he's been doing metal. Well, he did the two covers that led into the button that led into Doomsday Clock. I guess that's probably where I'm pulling from. I'm trying to think of things that I've read recently.
I want to say there are a couple metal variants that he did.
yeah,
Um,
there's too many to count.
yeah, there's
They're bleeding me dry.
You have some of the best, and this goes along with your positivity, is it breeds creativity, and along with Calvin's, and I think Batman artists kind of sum up the positive of all of our stuff, is you've got these people that love the source material that would have never gotten into it if this was a culture of exclusivity. If you were excluded from this as a fan, I don't think we'd ever have met people like Jason Fabok or people like David Finch. Is my favorite Batman artist of all time. I love him working on Batman, but you have like three or four of the best Batman artists of all time show up in the last 20 years.
Oh, for sure.
Jim Lee, David Finch, Greg Capullo. I mean, they have reinvigorated that character.
Well, and how many times have you heard like Jim Lee as a prime example? Because he does so many interviews.
Yeah.
Say, when I was a kid, I grew up reading this, and all I ever wanted to do was work on Batman, and then he became basically the father of modern Batman.
Well, and what's really incredible about Jim in that sense is that he loves Batman, and we know him as a Batman artist.
Yeah.
That dude's only done, 2-3 storylines
Yeah.
for Batman.
Yeah.
Like, he does covers more than he does story
Full
at this
story,
point.
yeah.
He did Hush with Jeff Loeb.
Well,
and
that was
then
such a success. It just
yeah.
put him on the map. I mean, that thing was so good.
And then he did All-Star Batman and Robin the Boy Wonder with Frank Miller.
Which, again, it's almost like he did the right thing by pairing with some of the most successful comic writers.
Yeah.
Between Miller and Loeb. Like, what a good... So, and I'm sure it wasn't on purpose, but,
Right.
smart. Like,
Oh, yeah.
that worked. Because
Jim Lee has also done some writing, and he's done well with that. He worked, I want to say, around early 90s, the X-Men line. He was doing the art for it, for sure, but I don't remember if he was writing.
Yeah.
But that's one of my favorites of Jim Lee is his X-Men stuff.
You know what else?
Oh yeah.
You know what else is a good point in that is Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's another one of those, I grew up loving Batman, and he's not like a prolific Batman writer, but he got to do 2 books.
Right.
And they're really good. Like, it's just cool stuff.
And just the fact that he's gotten to do not only that, but he's worked for both of the big camps of comics, because he's written Daredevil, he's written Green Arrow.
Yeah.
Well,
He's got that fantastic podcast dedicated to only Batman, and it's just
Right.
like you said, the growing up loving this thing. It's the difference in passion versus profit. He just has a passion for it, and it shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the similarities that all of our points in this topic have.
Yeah.
Where the negatives all seem to stem from not being integral to your art and to yourself for money or for less critiques or for whatever reason. And I like that the positive is all along the same thread of I like that you can do and be anything in this world as long as as long as you try.
It's passion.
Yeah.
It's camaraderie. It is about the bringing everybody together.
Because you have from you can make a comic book and write it and draw it all the way down to you can do what we're doing. Get a couple mics, sit around and really just talk about this shit.
Right. Or even not. I mean, how many times did we, for years before we ever did a podcast, sit around and just talk about this shit just because?
Well,
and
yeah.
it solidifies our friendship every
sure.
time we get into it. And I think that's my favorite part about nerddom, is that it is so good at bringing people together and really solidifying kind of who we are. Because I think what you like in a comic speaks volumes about who you are as a person, too.
And also, how many times have either of us been hanging out somewhere, like at an Applebee's or somewhere, and we're talking about comic book movies or comic books, and someone chimes in, and we're now friends?
For sure.
The amount of 3 Coins conversations where it's like the people just leaving, and in that brief moment that they're on the porch and we're on the porch at the same time, and they hear Star Wars or just a character's name come out of our mouths, and they go, hey, and they'll sit and listen to us for a second, and then chime in with something, and it's like, yeah, man, good talk.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think it's really a great thing, and I'm really glad that we as a planet, at least my little area of it,
Right.
seem to be getting past the idea that you can't like this form of art if you're going to be cool. It's not. I feel so less judged now than I ever did before, and it seems like year after year.
I got a real chip on my shoulder for that.
Me too. No, me too. I got beat up because I liked Batman, and now
Right.
if you don't like Batman, you get beat up by Batman.
by PJ wearing a too small bat cowl, and he runs up and he's like, "Where are they?" Yeah, I just sock you.
Kind of crushes
Right in
his
the
face,
genitals.
smashes it all up into the mouthpiece. Yeah.
Oh my god!
It just looks real weird in that.
Yeah.
Well, his bat cowl he got when he was like 5, and he still tries to put it on, and it just there's not enough lube to get that thing on his
Like
head
the
right.
the nose bit of the cowl kind of pulls my top lip.
That's why he got that.
Where are they?
That's why he got that Amazon order for the Kirkland's Family Lubricant 50-gallon drum.
Oh, the drum.
Yeah, it's because he dunks his little rubber cowl in it to help him get it over his
I'm
head.
so happy you said rubber
Kirkland's-
cowl because you said he dunks his little, and I was like, oh god,
Rubber
no.
cowl, rubber cowl. He dunks the rubber into the lube before he puts it on his face.
It puts the lobe on the cowl.
Lobe.
It puts Jeff Loeb.
Lobe in the lube.
Speaking
Hashtag lubed lobe.
of, like that.
I'm sure he'd love that too.
Now I'll say we've kind of like talked about what kind of geeks we are, like how we see it.
Mm-hmm.
But what I think's interesting is I'm the newest one to this group like of friends in Tampa in this
Sure.
area. Like I've known you guys for like 4 years at this
Which
point.
right, it's crazy to think that you are the newest one, I guess,
Yeah.
because
You're
think,
old as shit.
No, it's
Right.
just that I think about like our history together, and I almost like interject you into memories that you weren't there.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? Like I think about like, oh man, back in the Ebor house, and I talked to PJ about when we lived in Ebor forever, and you didn't know us.
I don't know what the house looks like. I
Right,
don't know where
you didn't
really
know
it
us,
was.
but I have trouble
yeah.
believing that you weren't just around.
Yeah.
That you haven't just been kind of here.
Well, I
you
remember-
fantasize about Derek. I get that.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I remember being at the hospital the day that Dylan was born.
Yeah, yeah.
Derek was there.
It was a beautiful day.
That's weird.
not.
Yeah, you were. You held him third. Remember?
Like
it was
you're,
his.
what, a couple months older than me?
What
Well-
month were you born?
June.
In '94.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm February. So
See,
yeah.
PJ held Dylan fresh out, and then I held
I'm
him.
surprised the doctors let you.
You were
Well, yeah.
third. His own mother didn't get to hold him till like 7. Like we had a whole line of people who were like, "Let's hold this miracle baby."
Of course, I got to hold him first. He's my baby.
Okay, so I guess where I was going with that
Is that not where that was headed?
is like whenever I think of how I met you guys and how we became friends, and obviously we have a lot in common, but there are certain like geeky things that I associate with like each of you whenever I think of how you came, like how we came into each other's lives and how we kind of made those first connections.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also like what if I'm in a store somewhere and I see something that's, you know, a particular character or series or what have you, I can say like, oh yeah, PJ would love that or Dylan would love that kind of thing.
Just a thing that makes you think of us.
Yeah. I mean, for like Calvin, whenever I first met you, like the things that kind of I knew we had in common, or I knew that you liked very early on, were things like the Joker, because one of the theme shows that I saw you at, you were done up in your Joker makeup.
Oh yeah, because you did meet me and PJ at Rocky Horror.
Right. Well, funnily enough, that's one of the things that I tie you to, is like, that's how I know you. You're Frankenfurter. You're,
that's fair.
From Rocky Horror. That's how I got to know any of you guys in the first place. And it was from that then, I knew that you loved Batman and the Joker especially. And then through that, we got to talking about comics. And then through that, I love Hellboy, you love Hellboy, but you especially love Abe Sapien. Like, those are things that I really associate with you, is like the Joker and Abe and Rocky Horror.
Yeah, that's cool. Like, it's almost refreshing too, because I'll say most people that I'm not like super good friends with are like, oh yeah, Frank, hey, Rocky Horror. Like, I get it all the time, and I don't want to say it's ever like off-putting, because it really isn't. It's kind of nice.
Yeah.
But like, it's funny to think back on that's how we met. But then from there, unlike most other people, we like got friends.
Yeah.
As opposed to just sort of, I know that guy who does this show sometimes.
No,
that's really cool.
That makes sense.
Is that pretty much what you guys all think too?
You can go first, Dylan.
One of the first times I met you, I think the reason we clicked so much was because I had come back from school one day, and I had all the symbols of the Led Zeppelin symbols written on my arm in pen.
I remember that.
Wow. You brought it up. You liked Led Zeppelin. I liked Led Zeppelin, and that's how it pretty much started. And then but that's actually not one of the associations. The main associations are Batman, obviously.
For sure.
Because you got so much Batman stuff.
Well, there was like that day that you came home after school, and you popped on to, I think it was Cartoon Network was like replaying the old series. And we just sat there.
Yeah.
I guess I should probably preface this why I knew Dylan in high school. His sister and I used to date, and she got really mad at me that day because I came over to spend time with her. I'd spent 10 minutes with her and then sat in the room with her brother and watched Batman for like hours.
One of the other things is Metal Gear Solid. I feel like that's another thing you and I really connected on, because that's one of my favorite games.
You were like one of the only people I'd ever met that actually played Metal Gear 3.
It's my favorite one.
Me too. And it was just like, oh shit. That's pretty cool.
The best sequence in video game history is when you're climbing
the ladder?
A 45-minute ladder. Snake!
You know what's funny is that the extreme mode of that game, you actually, like, your stamina falls really fast and you have to eat and stuff. Mm-hmm. If you stop for even like 2 split seconds, you don't have enough stamina to get up the ladder, and you will get right to the end and fall and die. Mm-hmm. That's extreme mode, but it was like a really funny. They were just like, we're going to give it just enough to make it before you have to eat again.
Yeah.
And as he falls, he takes a handgun and fires it in the air, and that's where the term shoots and ladders comes from.
That's impressive.
Thank you.
What about you, Peach? What do you think?
So it's hard for me to do this with you.
Yeah, because you guys
got our whole lives.
True.
We've nerded together our whole lives.
Things I associate with you, like if I see them and I think of you, Dracula.
Nice, yeah.
But not Bram Stoker's, and not like I think of the universal horror classic,
like
Bela
Bela
Lugosi.
Lugosi, yeah.
Right. I think of the Phantom of the Opera musical. Nice. I think of you because that's the thing that you were into as in your youth.
I was Phantom for 3 years for Halloween.
Yeah. And then I think of I think of course the biggest one is never being allowed to be the super. No. When I think of Robin,
yeah,
I think of you because Calvin was the older brother, so he was always Batman and I was always Robin.
We had like all the action figures, and my dad played.
Oh no! In any walk of life,
pretty much.
We're outside. We're in a swimming pool. We're swimming.
Well, if it makes
and he's like, "But I'm swimming, and I'm Batman."
If it makes you feel any better, you're bigger than me now, but I could probably still outrun you. So
Yeah. My dad was always almost near begrudgingly Commissioner Gordon. Because it was the thing of Calvin would be like, I'm the Joker and I'm gonna blow up this hospital, and I'd be like, well, I'm Batman, and Calvin would be like, no, you are not. Batman's asleep. Robin's doing this one solo. And Dad would be like, Commissioner Gordon says it's time to cut all this the fuck out. Go to your room.
After, well, he was good about sitting there and playing with us.
Yeah,
too.
those are the things.
So are like, is that a good representation, Calvin, from our points of view of things that you love, and like what brought you to the things that you do love in geek?
I would say,
culture?
I would say a lot of that is pretty right on the nose. In fact, it's even things that when I see them, I get excited.
Mm-hmm.
I think, as far as getting into it, when I was a kid, maybe like 3 years old, is my first like real memory of. I mean, I grew up with the Batman cartoon being the thing to watch. You know, it was being produced then. I was born in '90, so the Batman VHS had like hit the market a month or two before I was born.
Right.
I watched that movie like before I could talk. I was watching Batman, which is actually part of the reason why it fucked me up so bad when Prince died, is because he was probably the first rock music I ever heard.
Right.
Because he's all over that movie.
True.
His sounds are. And then Batman Returns comes out, in 92. And so I grew up with Batman. And it's because my dad is a comic book person and like grew up on the superheroes. Now his was Super Friends and things like that, and Adam West, things like that. But he was super a fan of that being a bonding thing. What's funny is also Star Wars was a big part of me getting into nerd stuff, because my dad, like one of the last things he bought before I was born, like for him as this is just for me, was the trilogy VHS tapes.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one box of the black box set. And so we used to watch those probably once a year. The
VHSs of the versions before Mr. Prequels cocked it all up.
That's right. And then we also watched all the James Bond films.
Okay.
I've seen every James Bond film except for I haven't seen Skyfall, and then the most recent Daniel Craig one I didn't see either. But I've seen
Spectre.
Yeah, but I've seen every Bond film until those two, and I'm only waiting for my dad to see those. So that's why I haven't seen them. So, and the other thing that I think we missed was that, as part of my history that wasn't touched on, is my dad. It's really my dad. He read The Hobbit to me when I was little.
Okay, cool.
And then we got through most of the trilogy.
Right.
Lord of the Rings. And that's kind of where my love of fantasy comes from. And it's not like my favorite. It's like you. It's not my favorite thing, but I like it. And I think that's why. So my dad really encouraged me to have a love of these things and a really good imagination. We would go outside and play, but it was never, let's go play Cops and Robbers or Army Men. It was always like, no, he had to be a Dragon King and I had to be the Knight, or what. It was always some made up thing.
Right.
And then, once PJ got old enough that he was watching these cartoons and stuff too, it was, I know he says it begrudgingly, but it was, when I was a kid, it was like kind of having a sidekick. And then it became having another member of the Justice League. Like, that was, we grew up and we read these things together, and it wasn't until high school. High school is when I really started getting into like graphic novels and like really started trying to keep up on issues and stuff. Otherwise, I would comic here, comic there, but it wasn't until like towards the end of high school that I started really doing that. And then collecting was, PJ and I have always gotten like the little toys and stuff, but when was the first time you and I went to Emerald City?
It was a while ago.
Yeah, several years ago,
Yeah.
but we went and we each got like a figure. And what's funny is we had started going to Toys R Us just before that. That's where I got those Sin City ones that I have.
Yeah.
Because we were just like looking for more adult collectible things, and Toys R Us had a couple of aisles that were like, this is great. And then we went to Emerald City, and it was just from then on.
It's a game changer.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm a collector. I've always been a video gamer. The only other thing that I should mention is my mom used to play Super Nintendo with me all the time.
That's cool.
All the time, because she was a stay-at-home mom. So we would play Super Nintendo, everything. Mario. There was this game, Mickey's Mansion, we played all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We played all three Donkey Kongs, all the Super Mario stuff, Kart Party, all of it. And she grew up. She even played the PS2 when we got it with us. Like, she was into the video games with us. So that was...
That's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, it's a family thing for me. It always has been. Dad's always kind of been Superman in my mind, and it's just always been weird. That's what we do, is nerd stuff.
Is that a similar for you, PJ? Like coming up?
For the most part, yeah. I was into comics. I feel a good while before high school for me. Like that was
Oh, you did that long before I did.
Yeah, that was a very young age thing. Not nearly to the caliber as now. You know, I wasn't so avid back then, but I grew up playing the same video games and whatnot that he did. What's funny is that he took the PlayStation route and I took the Xbox route, which is why Metal Gear is such a big part of his life and his upbringing. And it isn't for me at all.
It's
for
Halo.
me, it's Halo, and you know that kind of that Lego Indiana Jones and Kung Fu Panda, the double disc box set that would come with every new Xbox 360.
Yeah.
I beat the shit out of both of those games. But yeah, mostly similar with just little tangents here and there.
Okay. I mean, because that's the thing is whenever I think of, like if I did the same thing for you of like, what are things that I associate with you? They're Batman is the given for everyone. Literally everyone in our friend group loves Batman. So
Right.
that's a throwaway.
It's actually
You know what-
a
no, but you know
qualifier
what's
to hang out
funny?
with us.
It is.
What Batman do you think of when you think about me, and what Batman do you associate with PJ?
I associate the 89 Batman with you.
Dope.
And I associate the Arkham Asylum video game Batman with PJ.
That's
Nice.
awesome, and I will take that because that's Batman's way cooler than Calvin's Batman.
No.
Yes.
No. My Batman has guns, but not as like not as bad as like new Batman. Batfleck only uses guns.
Why use a fist when you could use a bullet?
I just need you to know that in BVS he had his finger on a trigger more than he used batarangs.
Well, he only kills to save, and
Saves far less
No.
than he kills.
I think he just kills.
Okay.
The characters or the things that I associate with you most of all, PJ, would be Spider-Man. Deadpool was an early one that I knew that you loved because he was a character that I didn't know a lot about, but you could tell me all about him. And he just kind of has like that zany. It fits you very well. And then you also really love that and you're knowledgeable about like the Green Lanterns.
Yeah.
Especially Hal, but
Yeah.
those are the things I really associate with you.
Yeah. Deadpool was a first love of mine. My email address still raises eyebrows because it's a obscure reference from his backstory, and I like Deadpool a lot. Green Lantern's a given. Anybody who knows me knows I like Green Lantern. Green Lantern is the hero that I most fantasize about having the powers of. And then Spider-Man and I have a relationship, and it's sexual, and it's also like yes, I've had sex with several Spider-Man collectibles that I own.
Oh
But
my God.
I'm trying to get away from the point of it being sexual, so if you guys can please stop.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I was thinking, did you connect with Spider-Man because you got
Sexually.
into him like,
yes, he did.
at a young age? Like, and he's a more younger hero.
Yeah, so I got into Spider-Man how I think most kids my age got into Spider-Man, which was Tobey Maguire.
Right.
But then I discovered that and Tobey Maguire and Spider-Man the animated series.
Okay.
But then I found that there was a lot more that character had to offer. Villains that are typically taken as jokes were still cool villains when written right. Like, I think Spider-Man Homecoming's a good example of that because Adrian Toomes is such a joke character in so much Spider-Man content because he's the old man in the green bird costume.
Right.
But he's a complicated character and he's cool.
What was the GameCube Spider-Man game we used to play?
Spider-Man 1.
It's like based on Tobey Maguire, but it had all of the comic villains in it.
Yeah, like the Shocker
Vulture,
and
Shocker,
Scorpion.
yeah.
You couldn't hit the floor, though.
Yeah.
You could only web from the sky. Like you were swinging above building tops, but his webs were
Yeah, they were connecting to something up there.
other webs.
But that makes sense if you watch the first Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi Spider-Man, because at the very end he's on the Empire State Building, at the time the tallest building in New York City, and then he thwips up into the air and swings away, and it's like, well, nothing's taller than that in that city. What was he shooting at?
Is the
Okay,
Gotham...
you just fucked my whole brain because if I'm going to be honest, I've never realized that. I'm sitting here thinking about the ending of that movie, and he does. He kind of throws his whole body off and then
It's the GCPD.
catches something.
It's the Gotham City Police Department's blimps.
Oh, they were making a
Quick
flyover
pit
of,
stop.
of New York.
Actually,
Okay.
too high for the pressure to sustain itself for a blimp.
Well, it's like
Blimp
that
pass.
scene. It's like that scene that when you look at it, Mary Jane is holding on to him as they swing through the city, but her hair is blowing the opposite direction, and the Spider-Man is clearly a mannequin.
Oh, it's so
Yeah.
obviously a dummy.
Those were such good movies.
When I think about you,
Not
Peach,
3.
I think obviously Green Lantern, which is weird that nobody said Flash. It made me think about it because he was like, "Well, duh, Green Lantern," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, Flash is my favorite." That's the
Yeah,
one
I didn't
mention.
associate Flash until probably later, though.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. If we're
You
looking
gotta-
if we're looking at beginnings,
you got to shake it up.
okay, I think about Two-Face.
Good answer.
You've cosplayed him a bunch of times with me, but also it's just like when as much as you love him, like I love Joker, I think about
I
you
have
at-
violent mood swings.
yeah, and half your face is fucked up. So I think because of that acid. So I think about that. I think about Beast.
That's an interesting choice.
Whenever I see Beast, my head goes to you, and it's probably because it was our first cosplay.
Okay.
Patrick and I, the first thing we ever cosplayed together,
It's like
I was
2010.
Yeah, we were young, and I did Nightcrawler, and he did Beast.
Okay, I was confused because you said together, and I thought maybe you did like Beast as like like when people do a horse costume, and like you were the ass end and he was the front.
Let's see. I think about
The top half is the beast, but the bottom half is the feast.
It's not as good as whatever that other joke was. That you said.
Resident
It's an
Evil.
eating booty joke. Let's move past it.
Resident Evil 4 will forever make me think about you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That is, and we'll tell it.
I'll tell that story.
Okay,
Calvin and I used to hate each other.
that's right. We beat.
We loved each other, and then we hated each other because he was a know-it-all fuck, and I was still a
Dumb fucking idiot.
yeah.
Okay.
And then one day,
Nothing's changed.
Nope.
one day I was really bored, and so I walked into Calvin's bedroom and I was like, "Hey man, what are you working on?" And he's like, "Right now I'm working on." He had just beaten this game, Resident Evil 4, with Sam, our cousin, beforehand, and was like, "Well, I'm working to beat it on my GameCube." Yeah, it was GameCube because there was multiple discs.
Yeah.
And so he's like, "I'm working to beat it on my GameCube." So I sat with him through the whole gameplay of it. It was a.
And he ended up wanting to talk about like what was going on at school, and just like I guess for the first time ever wanted like Big Brother talk. And
Yeah.
so it ended up, we talked for a little bit about school, and then by the end of it, he was like, "Look out for your health potions. We got to get more ammo. Switch to the rockets. There's a chainsaw
You
guy
gotta
over there."
smoke those herbs because that's
Dank.
Resident Evil.
Yeet.
Another thing is Calvin and I used to get so afraid because it's a horror game.
Yeah.
It's 1 a.m. We are like 13 and 9, and so we urinated an old Sprite 2-liter. And like, I think they're still in there.
And then I think Watchmen is another one that I think about you because you're the reason I read it.
Yeah.
You went, "Holy shit, read this book." I'd never even heard of it, and he was just like, "Read this
Did I tell you
right
that?
now."
Have I ever told you the story about my relationship with Watchmen?
No.
It's sexual. No.
Is it like the Spider-Man relationship? Because then please don't.
No, my relationship with the Watchmen book, I was in school suspension in my sophomore year of high school because I was caught skipping. And so I was in there. For those of you who are decent children and never had to sit through in-school suspension, you essentially sit, it's like solitary confinement with a bunch of other inmates. You sit in demanded silence in a single classroom in the back of the school, and you are there during school hours, but you can't go to any of your classes, see any of your friends. When you walk in the hallway, you have to be silent. You can't speak to other classmates. It's very prison gangland style weirdness. But
Are you given like your classwork to do, or is it like
yeah.
Oh,
The
okay.
teachers give you your work, and then you do that. But like,
Holy shit, you were never in suspension, were you?
No.
Wow.
I was never in suspension.
Well, and Dylan went to Jesus school, so
He was suspended every day, basically.
from a cross.
I don't know if you guys ever had out of school suspension, but
No.
it made no fucking sense.
Anywho, so my classmate Alex Otto, who is a good friend of
I
mine,
remember Otto.
he walks past me. We're not supposed to speak to each other, but I look at him. And I'm like, I am so fucking bored. And he's like, I got you. And he opens his messenger bag. He pulled out a copy of The Watchmen. He's like, read this. And so I read it in school suspension, and I was very happy with it, but I had in school suspension for 3 days. That shit took me 2 hours to read.
For
So-
whatever reason, and I know we were supposed to give 3. It's hard. You're my brother. For whatever reason, Doctor Doom, forever. Always, Doctor Doom, it's PJ.
That's because he's the best goddamn villain in the world.
I mean, real close. And then Assassin's Creed. That's my last one.
That's 5, Calvin.
I
Yeah,
know,
that's-
but I'm going to stop
Okay.
myself there. I could go on forever.
Yeah.
I see shit all the time. They're like, that's
Right.
PJ, but Assassin's
Okay,
Creed.
fine. My other 2 for you are Beetlejuice.
Oh, dope. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say...
He's
that's
like,
it.
all right, fine. I thought he was going to like rapid fire.
yeah.
I had one and it's gone, so it
Okay.
doesn't matter.
Was it Pirates?
Sure.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Pirates
Whatever
is another
Dylan
one.
said just then.
Pirates, he said.
Yeah. Pirate pies.
You know the word pirate, right?
Dylan, what do you associate with PJ? I don't think we've touched on yours yet.
One thing is White Lantern Batman, which I know seems kind of specific, but it was actually because one of the first times we hung out, we went to your parents' garage to jam out, and I saw that comic on there. And at one point when you guys were inside, I was still hanging out outside because I felt awkward. It was my first time at your guys' place. I didn't want to just invite myself in, so I just hung out there and I read that comic, and that was just one of the things that stuck with you.
Mm-hmm. I still have that.
Mm-hmm.
It's right there. Somewhere in that stack.
It was a good book. Another thing is probably Assassin's Creed, because you got that tattoo pretty early when I knew you. And another one that I'm trying to think of early on.
He got that tattoo at the Ebor house. Derek was there. He was watching it happen.
While you were just a wee lad.
So still suckling on your Patrick's teeth.
Okay, let's not talk about my breasts.
Well, we were talking about Spider-Man being inside you, so I just assumed all's fair, but okay.
I was inside Spider-Man.
That little figure?
I'm
Okay,
not into
I
that.
believe that.
I'm not into that.
Moving on. I can't think of another earlier one, but one big one is Breaking Bad.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's not only the greatest show on television,
That's goddamn
but it's
right.
also your favorite show.
Well, what it is it's multi-Emmy award-winning AMC's hit drama, Breaking Bad, which is exactly how I would say that.
The whole time we were at MegaCon,
Yeah.
you wouldn't
Yeah.
stop.
Every time I talk about Breaking Bad, I adopt like a Long Island.
My favorite was when we would go to the vendors and give them that spiel.
Yeah.
Excuse me, do you have anything from the multi-award-winning AMC's smash hit Breaking Bad? And they'd be like, what? No. And
Well,
he'd
it
be
was
like,
either
oh, then I don't want it.
It was either like, yeah, I think I've got some Breaking Bad stuff over here. Or my favorite one was, dude, this is a body pillow shop. And I was like,
Yeah.
so no Heisenberg on your pillows? Like, no.
It's the brilliance of that is the build up,
Yeah.
especially at MegaCon, is because you're building it up as the AMC show. It's award winning. It's
Groundbreaking.
groundbreaking. And they're like, well, yeah, I've got tons of Walking Dead stuff. And then you drop Breaking Bad on them, and they're like, no, they've made like 2 figures of that show.
Okay, to be
I
clear,
bought PJ that big Heisenberg. He's not very articulate. It's more like a statue. But I bought him that at Yancey Street.
Yeah.
Is it the one over by our old place?
Yeah.
For when you moved into your first apartment. That was your
Yeah.
move-in present.
yeah.
Yeah. Did you feel that?
What?
The ground vibrating. Do you feel that?
Feel that.
Yeah. Do you?
Yeah.
You guys don't feel the shaking right now?
I smell that.
I don't understand what the. Oh shit, Dylan!
Oh my God. What is that?
All I can see is feet. He's massive. Jeez. It's got to be
Oh my
3
God.
stories tall. They called the mother duck.
It's the boss.
It's a mega mother duck. Somebody
I'm
get
just-
the guns. We gotta go.
I'm just lying down. I surrender.
Get the guns, Dylan. Grenade launcher. Grenade launcher. Let's get the rocket.
He's downstairs too.
It's so big.